Okay, hello everyone. How are you doing? Here is Magos talking, and will be the host on the first part of the showcase of the 23 anniversary of Tiberian Sun. I will be the host this night, this evening. While we working and showcasing the single player, and we're going to have later more multiplayer games. Here we meet the developers of the mod Fading Dust. They will be with me talking with you guys too, sharing details, conversation, comments, and the progress of their mod Fading Dust. Who will be to start first?
Yeah.
Um,
So, hey, Tiberius here. Content creator, so mapper, mission scripter, gameplay designer, balance director, sort of all that jazz.
he also makes the best custard and he puts it on everything.
That
Now,
too.
It's a joke about Danish people and custard. Yeah, so I'm Askhati. I'm the other co-developer. I'm more on the art assets and the coding side. I mostly make voxels actually. And yeah, we've been working on Fading Dusk since, if I recall, December 2020. We've been going for about 18 months. We're looking forward to our 2-year anniversary in a couple of months. Um, and yeah, I mean we're excited to be part of the anniversary. I think this is our second year participating. We look
Yes, it
forward to
is.
share some of our content. And we actually had a discussion earlier today between myself and Tiberius. We are a lot closer to our public beta release than we previously anticipated. So we might have some very good news in terms of going public within the next month or two. So yeah, fingers crossed for that.
Yeah. And a lot of it is basically on me to get the last missions done, so I expect to be whipped vigorously over the next few months.
Make it work, damn it, make it work.
Then make the scripts behave just once.
Well, if they don't,
Yeah.
if they don't behave, just delete them.
Okay, so the big new thing this year's anniversary showcase compared to last year is we have missions now. The mod actually has a small selection of missions that is steadily growing as the engine slowly learns to behave. So yeah, that's what we're gonna start out showing you today. Is our GDI mission, which will actually end up being the second in their campaign, but it's the first one I made for them. Long story, but yeah, the story is some of it was kind of set in stone later. So I just kind of made some missions based on some story elements that I knew we wanted to do, and then I'm just gonna sort of put it all together in the end. Which I know sounds very chaotic, but we actually do have a plan. So yeah, let's get started. Mangoes, whenever you're ready.
okay, let's go. First in this part will be the later mod tester of the new missions. Here we are in the single player campaign. Anything to see, Askhati or Tiberius, about these 5 missions available right now in the mod?
Tiberius, you can take that one.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is sort of this is actually going to be the second AI mission. Um, we are our story is set just after Firestorm, around a year after. So, uh, the place we are right now, story-wise, is that GDI and Nod still have a truce with each other. But GDI is sort of putting out fires all over the globe. Sort of civilian uprisings, life form infestations, all sorts of stuff. So, um, yeah, I wanted to do something different with the campaign from the typical Command and Conquer campaign opening, and I also wanted to showcase this how GDI are sort of dealing with a lot of global troubles stemming from the Tiberium infestation, not necessarily having anything to do with Nod directly. So, in their initial campaign, you're actually going to be dealing with a lot of problems the world over that aren't directly Nod related.
So it's mostly as expanding the universe of the Firestorm after the big war, the effects and
Yes,
everything.
yes, and one important thing to note is that we do not acknowledge CNC3 in Fading Dusk, i.e., we are going with an original story set after Firestorm. We will not be going into the EA storyline.
That's interesting. Well then, one question of curiosity, but mostly for everyone. Right now, the missions here displayed are in order or are just separated
Um,
timelines? Or individual missions that tells a mini story, for example.
it's not entirely set in stone, but the thought right now is that you're going to start out actually with the GDI campaign, and then you're going to be playing some Nod missions, and then go into some forgotten missions, and somewhere along the way exploring our original new faction, the CSM. Um,
Okay. Uh,
but yeah, the timeline isn't fully set in stone right now, other than GDI's campaign being the beginning of it.
hmm.
Yeah,
And
Tabir.
thank you. Sorry.
No, I was just going to add, Tiberius and I actually had some very good brainstorming sessions a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about the Nod campaign and how the Nod campaign will basically go and explore some partially the Nod leadership struggles after Firestorm. You know, Kane is gone again. The inner council has kind of been decimated. Slavic's the only one that's left. So it will explore that, but it will also explore the rise of the Nod sub-factions that we have planned. So the Black Hand sub-faction and the Heavy Cyber sub-faction. So the idea is as you're playing the Nod campaign, you will get introduced to these Nod sub-factions as part of the storyline, and then it will start to make sense about why they are present and why they have become distinct factions on their own as well. And the Nod campaign will then basically end in such a way that it it will tie up a lot of loose ends in a sense, but it will also set the stage for the next episode then in the storyline. So we have some very exciting things planned there. Yeah, we look forward to putting that together. No pressure on Tiberius. I mean, it's not like he'll have to do all of it, but he'll be doing most of it. But yeah, he'll be doing all of it.
Jesus, why did I agree to this? Okay, so I just want to address two comments. First of all, Der Harlekin, thank you very much. We're very excited to do this as well, and we like the creative freedom that we have with an original story. So we ourselves are sort of excited to see where that goes. Lupus, I don't know much about 40k. I've never really been into that, so I don't feel like I can fully answer. But yes, we are going for sort of a grimdark tone. We really want things to like. We really want to show the effect of this crisis and how Tiberium is really warping the world. You will already see in the game a lot of new mutated assets, a lot of new life forms that have popped up, a lot of new mutated flora and fauna, basically. So, and yes, that's also part of the point of having um, GDI. A big part of that story actually dealing directly with stuff like life form infestations is to show that this is becoming such a big problem that it almost rivals their fight with Nod.
Yeah,
Um,
lots of interesting
so
stuff planned there. But yeah, let's jump right into it.
Yeah,
yeah,
let's go. Okay, we'll go with GDI this time. Keeping the peace. Well, we start now with the first mission that works as an introductory. We can see we had tried to provide humanitarian aid to the people of the region, but a local warlord has been stealing the goods for himself and his growing army of mercenaries. Pit stalls were underway when suddenly his forces started openly attacking the supply route and a nearby base. High Command has now authorized the use of lethal force to protect the supply route. If too many troops are lost, we will force it to abandon our efforts in the region. First, take control of the supply base and threaten by building a refinery to maintain a steady supply of resources. Our new scout drones should help you find the nearest sources of Tiberian crystals. To remove this warlord, we first had to secure the online villages of this sector. Raise or capture all buildings flagged by the warlord and destroy his forces. Objective 1, build a refinery. Objective 2, defeat all mercenary forces. Objective 3, capture or destroy all assets flagged by the mercenaries. And objective 4, do not lose more than 5 supply routes. So it is like this first mission as GDI was like introductory to the faction and a kind of soft tutorial. And we have already an
yeah.
animation. As now,
I assume there's a bit of a delay on the stream.
yes, I think so.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
something that issue from the Twitch, not from me.
Yeah, I know. I know. Just checking. So yes, the first GDI missions will have some tutorial elements to them, both because we don't want to assume that every single player is a Command and Conquer veteran. That's something I have seen from my history with DTA, which is sort of where I got started as a modder, is that some of our fans had heard about the game word of mouth, and it's a standalone free game, so they gave it a try, and they had never played Command and Conquer, so yeah, I figure it'll be the same with FD. We might get people who have never played Command and Conquer but learned about the game from friends and family or whatever.
So,
But part of it is also that even for veteran players, there might be a few tips and tricks that you will learn via these tutorial elements in the initial campaign. Um, I plan to introduce stuff like queue moving, for example, which is a mechanic in the TS engine that's it's never really explained anywhere in the vanilla campaign, but it's actually really crucial to learn to become to get proficient at the game and fully master its tactics and movement mechanics. So that's something that was sorely lacking in the original campaign, for example, was an instruction on how to do this.
Queue moving, good example.
Yes, I think that's really the prime example of sort of a hidden mechanic that really shouldn't be. Another is, for example, I only recently, from another community member train station, learned how to bring my troopers out of prone mode by double clicking on my move order. I had no idea. So like, there's a lot of little tips and quirks with this engine that I feel really begs a tutorial.
Something that I learned today, actually, while we're watching this develop, um, I learned today that the landmine code, which uses the limpet mine logic, vehicles can pass over those limpet mines. So, friendly vehicles, they can pass over them without destroying them. Um, Infantry cannot. So you can literally use invisible landmines as an anti-infantry barrier to stop infantry from passing through a certain area, like a choke point, for a bridge or something like that. I only figured that out today.
Well, what do you know? Yeah, we're constantly learning new quirks with coding on this engine, but of course that's something a lot of players will never really recognize, like all the geeky little elements going on behind the curtains. But as for the missions, I really feel like players should be made privy to all the control mechanics of the game. It really feels weird that there's so many basic aspects of gameplay that are never explained in the game.
Yeah. But I think our current mission selection that we have, the single player missions at least, they do provide a good landing for that. See how that goes.
Well, I certainly hope so. Yeah, I'm interested to see when we get into Restitution, the first Nod mission, whether some of those other mechanics will come into play. Because there's another little trick that I tried to make really important in this mission.
Oh, one thing I will tell you straight up that I absolutely hate about Restitution is the fact that you play with a bunch of infantry, and then you go up against sniper towers. And if you take too long around the sniper towers, you all of a sudden no longer have infantry left.
Um, hmm.
I learned that the hard way.
There is a solution to that if you scout thoroughly. That's all I will say. And it generally, and a piece of advice in my mission for FD: scout thoroughly.
Yeah, that seems to be the winning thing. Just scout.
Yeah, because I like to provide little, back paths and alternate routes and stuff like that, which it kind of feels to me like something that West would like to do as well. And we try really hard in FD to somewhat preserve that Westwood feel. Of course, improve where we feel it's necessary, but we do want Fading Dusk to ideally feel like actual post-Firestorm second expansion to the game.
I think visually at least we've managed that. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my volume here on my mic. Oh, here we go. Oh, seriously? Voice and video. Okay, wait.
What
all
is
my
the
stuff
issue?
ready. No, some of the people are complaining. They're saying the people on Discord are a bit quiet. I'm just gonna find my headphones. Hang on.
Yeah, but
I've
for
already
Tiberius,
turned everything up to max.
yeah, I fixed that issue right now. So,
Ah, sweet.
and regardless to Tiberius, in any case, the viewers there in the chatter will tell us that if something is wrong or we need something more to do.
What, sorry?
That, yeah. Oh, from the audio, yeah, I understand. The thing is that
No.
mostly we are focusing in the comments and from the Tiberian. Yeah, but there maybe.
Oh yeah, the audio. Yeah.
Oh, Mission Faye? Oh, lol. Where was focusing? I got mission failed. Lol. So even for a tutorial mission, you can still fail, and the mission
Yes.
fail triggers is still working. That is nice. So the mission is working.
Yes. Yeah. So given the early missions, I had some feedback from testers that it still feels nice if there's some level of pressure, some level of basically that it's possible to fail. And I've generally designed my missions so that they do force you to multitask a little bit, because I feel like that's a very important skill to learn generally with the game. Speaking from especially playing against other players in the multiplayer, is if you can't multitask at all, you're gonna be really struggling. And it's a good way to, at least I feel, introduce some basic challenge. It's just you having to be aware of different parts of the map at all times.
Well, even in multiplayer, well, even in skirmish, when you're playing against the AI, because of the AI work that Danku has been doing, if you play against the computer tries very hard to kick your ass. If you're not paying attention the whole time, the AI will kick your ass. So we find it's really good to practice on those difficult settings. Try and respond a bit faster every time. Make yourself a better player. I'm still not a very good player, but I can beat the AI from time to time.
Yeah, we start for something, so it's mad it. Okay, so here we are again. Something I remember now. There is this small detail that all the missions from Fading Dust work as a Dark Souls mode. The saving mode is not working. So, any comments about that? Why it's not working?
Yeah, we basically don't know right now. You have to remember we are still in alpha stage with this mod, and we're having some trouble with our saves crashing when you load. We don't know why, and honestly, I expect that we will need some assistance from certain community members to track down the issue.
Sorry, isn't that a client issue though? As far as I'm
No, because it works in DTA, but it's busted in TR and FD.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, to be fair, DTA is using an extremely customized base client, basically, so I don't think it's comparable in that sense. And if I remember correctly from the discussions on Modhaven, the TS client for some reason doesn't correctly save all the necessary parameters when it creates a save file. So the moment that you try and load from the save file, the game basically says, okay, I'm actually missing information, therefore I'm going to crash, and then the save load function basically doesn't work. That's my understanding of it. But yeah, it's basically baked into the default client.
To my knowledge, saves and loads do work on the basic client, but it seems that whenever you introduce any amount of custom content, it sort of croaks. Because I'm reading now in the chat that Flippy, the author of one of the newer mods in the community, From the Ashes, is having the same issue. But yeah, all in all, we don't know exactly what's causing it, and yeah, I expect that we'll need to talk to people like Rampestring and CC Hyper to get some assistance, because when it comes to the client code base, we're a little out of like it's a little above our pay grade, so to speak.
And Hyper just appeared in the chat too, so best time to talk about that. What the best time?
Speak of the devil. Hey, Hype, we were just talking about needing your help. Welcome to the stream. We're having a trouble. We're having a problem with save games crashing. It seems to be a pervasive issue across TS client mods. We will send you some logs at some point, of course. Just I've been so busy developing missions that I haven't had time to look into fixing them, or at least the save games.
That's actually something about.
Your voice, Askhati, is kind of on off right now. Like you're talking far.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh yeah, now it's better.
This headset is full of gremlins. No, just what I wanted to say earlier was something about Fading Dusk, which we focused on right from the start. I don't think we're the only mod who did it this way, but for us it was a big focus. We specifically want Fading Dusk to be a strong multiplayer experience. I do understand a lot of mods focus on single player content, and they've got, they have massive single player campaigns and missions and stuff, and I mean those are nice if you're playing on your own. But we specifically, with Fading Dusk, we specifically want the mod to be a multiplayer thing. It's something that you play with your friends, with your clan buddies or whatever. So right from the start, we focused on, get the multiplayer balancing correct, make sure that if you add new units that they don't break any of the strategies or metas or things like that. So the upside of that has been that the multiplayer experience for Fading Dusk is currently a very nice experience. I mean, all the new units and structures that we've added for GDI and NOD, they all work well, the balancing is great, everything comes together nicely. And then as well for the new factions that we've added, the City-State Militia, which usually just gets abbreviated to CSM or the Militia, and then the fourth faction, the Forgotten, they all have a very solid multiplayer presence. So whether you're playing against your buddies or whether you're playing a skirmish mission against the AI and the AI is trying to eat you from 3 different directions at once, we want that multiplayer element to be a very strong element of the mod. So the downside is we haven't really gotten that much work done on the single player side. The single player side also takes an immense amount of time. I mean, anyone who talks to Tiberius about it will will hear him elaborating at length about it. But yeah, so our downside is currently that we focused on multiplayer, but you lose out on the single player side, and part of that is the save and load function on the single player side. That's unfortunately something that we've neglected a bit up until this point, purely because our focus hasn't been that strongly on single player. Yeah, so that's just some context there.
Yeah, we've moved our focus much more to single player during the past, I'd say, half year or so. The first year of development was strictly multiplayer focused. We wanted to get the sort of the core of the game down before we did anything else. Because I mean, part of it is also that once you have the balance down, you can start making your single player content without having to rebalance it a bunch of times after the fact, which is something that, again, especially from GTA, I know can be a tremendous pain in the ass.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if you're balancing your units for multiplayer balance, then every time you change your multiplayer balance, it affects the single player games, the single player missions as well, which means you're effectively, when it comes to making sure that the single player missions work, you're effectively trying to hit a moving target, which makes it obviously a lot more difficult. So Yeah, we're hoping to get the multiplayer balance done and bedded down before we step heavily into the single player side of things.
That being said, again, because we are very committed to having this good multiplayer experience, that is what takes priority. So if we find an issue with the multiplayer, like we want the core gameplay to be good. That's the important part. So if there's an issue, then it's basically on me to not only fix the balance but also fix my shit in terms of missions. So I really have a vested interest in getting the balance right from the get-go.
Yeah, we've actually, Tiberius and I have actually had quite a bit of fun with developing Fading Dusk over the past year and a half. Our focus has been on very different areas of the modding experience. You know, multiplayer balancing, single player design, art design, coding. We each kind of have our own sort of area that we focus on, and it's been nice in a sense because we can each focus on the things that we're good at, without having to sort of constantly check and debate things with other people about, should we do this or should we do that. We do still have things that we check in on, like, we have a discussion about it, compare some notes, try and figure out what to do. But most of the time it's, how can I say, it's almost like the Roman Empire back in the day, where you had your two emperors. You had the emperor, the Western Emperor and the Eastern Emperor, and they each focused on a different part of the empire, and they each kind of did their own thing to get things going, and then they kind of met in the middle, to share notes and stuff like that. So we've kind of been following that mindset for most of our
I think
work.
it's comparable. I think it's comparable to like we're basically different departments of our own little game development studio.
Yeah. I mean, when we came together to start Fading Dusk back in the day, we each brought very different skill sets to the table as well. I mean, I was very interested in doing code and doing art, but I had no interest in doing single-player missions, and I had no experience with multiplayer balancing either. And then Tiberius came in from his side with a lot of experience with multiplayer balance, a lot of experience with single-player mission design. It was a case of, okay, well, if you put two halves together, then you get one whole. So that's what we went with.
Yeah, we complement each other really well, I'd say, honestly. We do, like you said, check in with each other, and I actually think there's been a bit more overlap recently, where especially with one of the factions, you'll know which one I'm talking about. You've let me have a really big say in the art direction, and in turn,
You made me reskin things.
and in turn, you've had some gameplay elements that you really want, sort of in broad strokes, have be part of the game. Like, for example, having it be more tactical in the way that you use terrain, or having aircraft be a lot more relevant to the overall experience.
Sorry, I'm just watching that bloody militia artillery piece sniping at Mango's infantry.
Yeah.
They are such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it's gone now, the message, but there was a hint about there might be another way to go about this problem. Because as you will notice, brute forcing this area is full.
Tiberius likes to put in his secret passages in the back.
GDI gains to claim this space. A name of peace, right?
Oh yes.
Something that's nice about GDI, you'll notice it from your barracks. It's one of the new infantry units that you can build. Is that reconnaissance drone? It's basically inspired by these, these cheap drones that you can buy. You can link it up to your iPhone, and you can fly them around and have a look at them. Have a look at your environment. We added a unit like that for GDI, which gives them an incredibly powerful reconnaissance unit. Basically, from the moment you build your barracks, you can build these drones, and you can use them to fly everywhere on the map. Scout things out, have a look at everything. They're very
Sorry to
cheap.
interrupt, but Mangoes,
Yeah.
if you think about it, there might be a way to not have to deal with these defenses to begin with.
Yeah, capturing the power plant.
Yeah. That's you can get to them via the back path without even having to go through the defenses.
Well, a way showcasing how not to play this mission. That's the way.
Well, I mean, the pillbox you will have to deal with the hard way. That's just, it's a pillbox. It's a guy with a gun in a concrete cage. It's that does not require power.
Okay, so
It's an angry guy with a machine gun.
Yeah, it's a very angry machine gunner. It's anyone who's played the multiplayer will know just how angry those machine guns are. The CSM are kind of a defensively themed faction, since basically their deal is this is a bit of a simplification, but they are a civilian militia that's sort of committed to defending their cities as opposed to being evacuated from them. So they have a very defensive theme, and trying to bomb rush them or just go headfirst into their defenses is usually pretty suicidal.
Thanks everyone for following on the channel. Thanks Heroine Darn for the beats and Luna too. Everyone, I can see everyone now. I capture as a proper player of CNC. I always capture enemy buildings. We had the power plants, the new models, and we had new barracks with the new factions, and they already have their R.
Yeah, it's always fun to capture stuff, especially in the single player missions. What you will see when you capture the militia barracks is you gain access to their RPG troopers. Now, the RPG troopers are individually, they're quite weak, but the moment that you have about 5 or 6 of them together, they become incredibly dangerous to enemy vehicles. And the reason for that is they have a stupidly fast rate of fire. So the moment you have this squad of 5 or 6, you can start taking down enemy tanks, enemy walkers, anything, and they just chew them up. So they're a very nice addition to your forces. They support the GDI disc throwers quite well.
Yeah, it's always fun in missions to get these sort of weird combinations of units when you can capture something, which is also something we like to explore and emphasize in the mission design. Especially the second NOD mission. I don't know if we'll get to that if we'll have the time, but that one focuses very much on having sort of a unique unit roster that you wouldn't see in a normal multiplayer match.
Oh yeah, it was one of the things that Tiberius and I talked about a lot was the idea of we all love sort of nostalgia throwback units. I mean, I can remember from the Tiberian Sun campaign, from the single player missions, when you find those old Tiberian Dawn mammoth tanks and the old Tiberian Dawn flame tanks. It's so cool seeing them in Tiberian Sun, even though, I mean, they would be 30 years out of date at that point in time, they still look cool. So when we started designing the militia faction, if you pay close attention to their units, a lot of their units are actually, the unit models are actually very similar to what GDI uses during Tiberian Dawn. But in our single player missions, you can actually unlock some of the original Tiberian Dawn units as well. Obviously, just with sort of modern art. With modern, I mean for the Tiberian Sun engine instead of Tiberian Dawn engine. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of a throwback content like that. So we really hope the players appreciate that.
Yeah, part of it was also that when we initially added, I think, like 2 or 3 of these units, we found that they were wildly popular with people, like with our tester staff, and we kind of like them as well, so why not?
Yeah, I mean it's always fun to bring in those units that people sort of know and recognize, and then just seeing them performing, you know, in a new environment, I suppose.
Well, part of that also is that we do. Oh, hey, Ramps. Um, but yeah, we do think that there are situations where it actually makes sense to revert to some of this older tech, like for example with the thing with the not artillery. They've actually started using some of their old howitzers as a mainstay unit just because they're so cheap and reliable and readily available. Same with the GDI medium tanks. You know, all these the big slow walkers they have. They have a lot of advantages over the old tech, but one thing they don't have is speed, and especially in a city environment, you know, they don't get any sort of movement bonus on pavement. So, uh, yeah, there will be missions, actually also multiplayer maps where you get to play with this older tech, and it will even in a multiplayer context have some situational relevance.
Yeah. So yeah, when we started, like I said, when we started designing the militia faction, the militia faction
Uh,
actually has a very strange. Sorry, go for it.
I'm just answering someone in the comments. Yes, we have integrated a lot of the XTX pack assets. Had a little bit of trouble with some of them causing some technical issues, but we've managed to get a stable build going.
Mostly stable. Yeah, some of the multiplayer maps still crash for no reason that we can figure out.
It's mostly Biaobu at this point that's being a bitch, and I still don't know why.
It's a cliff pathfinding issue, I suspect, on that one map. We must just figure it out. We'll sit, crunch through it one day.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it from testing, but anyways, that's a tangent. Hopefully I'll fix that map someday.
Yeah, as you can see
Yeah,
already, sorry to interrupt. And the mission
yeah, go
progress,
for it.
so from Fading Dust, that there is in the readiness tutorial showcasing and teaching the player to use amphibious APC and loot for another vantage point. For example, about, hey, this is loot 245. Maybe I can find another way. Now, in the tutorial, this bridge is destroyed. I can use an engineer to repair. Or maybe you can play with amphibious APC and do a small landing.
Yeah, the amphibious APCs are great for that. If you see water, send something to go and drive over it and go and explore.
Yeah, I think honestly, as a mission designer, those are just a fun unit because you can use them to very easily set up alternate paths and ways of going about assaulting an area. So yeah, honestly, as a mission designer, it's one of my favorite units. Just you can set up some fun situations with them.
Yeah, something that we're looking forward to exploring more is one of the GI sub factions is called Rapid Response, and Rapid Response is basically GDI's version of the Marine Corps. So a lot of focus on
Yeah,
amphibious operation.
we also
Sorry, what's
frequently
that,
refer
Tib?
to them as we also frequently refer to them as the RRMC, the Rapid Response Marine Corps.
Yeah, yeah. So their focus is pretty much on amphibious operations. They don't have walkers; they've got normal tanks, but a lot of their tanks are also amphibious. And then they have sort of floating, what would be the hovercraft, I suppose. So they can very much operate on areas of the map that you would not normally expect GDI to be capable of operating. So yeah, we're looking forward to developing that faction further. The sub factions are not a priority right now for getting the beta release out. The beta release is pretty much what we're working towards is focusing on the four primary factions, so GDI, NOD, the Forgotten and then the Militia, and then having some single-player missions available for each of the factions. So once we have that done, we can go public with the beta. And then once we've gone public with the beta, we then want to flesh out the 5 sub-factions, slowly but surely finish them off, so that the end result for Fading Dusk will be 9 playable factions. 3 GDI factions, 3 Nod factions, 1 Militia faction, and then 2 Forgotten factions. That's kind of our end goal, but that's a couple of years in the future still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, the CSM are actually a sub-faction of the Forgotten. They just... Part of the story actually is that there's sort of a 50-50 split between humans and mutants. There are people of those communities who've chosen to work together instead of fight each other.
Yeah, I do suppose. I suppose the militia counts as a sub-faction in that regard. They just look drastically different from the Forgotten. I suppose different enough that they could also pass as not being a sub-faction, I guess.
Particularly, I was just saying, particularly in their bases, but I think in terms of story and like a lot of their infantry roster are mutants in terms of gameplay.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, what I was actually going to say earlier is, so for the GDI and the Nod sub-factions, when you look at the faction design, so GDI, you get primary GDI, then you get Rapid Response, which is the first sub-faction, and then you get Space Command, which is the second sub-faction. But if you put those 3 factions next to each other, they all look like, how can I say? They all look like GDI factions. They've got a consistent color scheme. They've got a consistent design scheme. They look like they come from the same faction and production facilities and stuff like that. Whereas if you put the militia faction next to the Forgotten faction, very different. The aesthetics are completely and utterly different. You can actually see a lot of a number of the militia structures on this map, even those barracks structures and the solar power plant structures that have been in play here. Those are all militia structures. They've got very much a city, sort of an urban style going on. Concrete structures. They look like civilian buildings that have been repurposed in a sense. Whereas the Forgotten, we'll get to them later. The Forgotten have very much more a they look like those prefabricated colony pods, which we see a lot in the Tiberian Sun single player missions. They've got that type of a look to them, very much a case of nomadic warrior culture, and they have mobile structures. You don't set down roots if you're busy crawling around through the wasteland, that type of thing. So yeah, it's been really fun designing different looks for them and making sure they look differentiable from each other in a sense. Tib, I see Max is asking questions about the Q&A in our lounge.
Yeah. Well, I guess we have actually a bit of a running Q&A now as we're watching the missions, but we'll also have some co-op games after this where we'll also be taking questions if anyone wants to. And there we go. Mangos has cleared GDI's first mission.
Yeah,
Yes. Awesome
everything's
stuff.
working. Nicely done. I think that nowadays the best time to do some Q&A, dedicate some time to the chatters who are here.
Yeah, sure. So if you guys have any questions, please let us know. Whip out the questions and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, to address what Lunak said earlier, 9 factions is going to be a lot of work for, me. But hopefully it's going to be well worth it. I think really the main challenge is going to be not having quite the same amount of sort of special mechanics as you might on something like the Yuri's Revenge engine. We've had to be very creative with really pushing the ways you can set up faction balance to its limits on this engine. For example, by introducing some new concepts in terms of how we do our warheads, that is, how units damage each other. Not that we have custom ones, because sadly the engine can't handle that, or we don't have custom armor types, that is. For example, something that testers have needed some time getting used to is the concept of what we call LHE, that is light explosives. So we for example, have it tends to be smaller rockets that they'll travel very far, but they actually won't really have the power to penetrate heavy armor. So what you usually use them for is either sort of area effect bombardment of infantry or for sniping lighter vehicles. So often they'll have very good tracking. So you can sort of snipe incoming raiding parties, stuff like that.
Tib, if I can interrupt you there quickly. Mangoes, if you go to the skirmish window and you click on the drop down where you select your player faction, you can maybe show the viewers what the different sub factions look like and what their icons look like. Then we can have a conversation around that as well. I see we had a question on Spaceform.
Yeah, right now there are 9 total. 3 factions for treats. The GDI, Rapid Response, that you were telling, the Space Command, Not, Bloodham, Heavy Cyber, that sounds spicy, Forgotten, Militia, and Hofati.
Yeah, so starting, I'll quickly talk about the GI ones, then Tib can talk about the Nod ones. So, like we explained earlier on GDI, the Rapid Response faction is pretty much their Marine Corps. They focus on getting into the fight quickly. A lot of the units are amphibious, they can cross water very quickly, so terrain doesn't really bother them or stop them. Their downside is that they are not as heavy in terms of armor as regular GDI. So they don't have mechs. They don't have the same, like the Mammoth Mark II Walker. They're not as, how can I say, as powerful a sort of a bulky presence on the battlefield in the same way that the normal GDI does. So when you play Rapid Response, you have to play very fast and light, as if you were playing with Nod, in a sense. Then Space Command is very fun. You basically start off with an ion cannon, and every building gives you another ion cannon. No, actually, I'm joking. So Space Command is basically, they're based out of the Philadelphia and then a neighboring station, and their focus is basically on air support. They build a base that's very defensive, a lot of turrets to make sure that the base is safe, and then once their base is well established, they pretty much just use their air force to go out and smash the ever-living snot out of everything that they can find on the ground. So bombers, strike craft, drones, that type of thing. A lot of that going on. We also want to give them some experimental flying mech designs. It's something that I've been fiddling around with in the background. The idea is basically it looks like one of these Japanese anime Gundam type things. So it's a mech. It looks like a mech, but it's actually a hover unit. So it can cross water. It can basically fly, between air quotes. And then they carry, machine guns, missiles, cannons, things like that. So they can respond very quickly to things on the ground, but because it's a hover unit, the moment that you go into an ion storm or anything like that, the mech will have to land and it won't be usable, until the ion storm has passed. So Space Com in general.
Just
Yep.
please remind me afterwards about that. There was actually something I wanted to talk to you about in regards to that. Just please remind me after the stream because I keep
Yeah, yeah.
forgetting.
So Spacecom is as a concept, we kind of have them sort of sketched out very roughly on paper, but we haven't really developed them for multiplayer testing or for balancing or anything like that yet. They're pretty much just a framework at this point. Rapid response
I
is
imagine.
from. Hmm?
I was just saying. I imagine they'll also have a lot of hover units. Like they will have ground units in terms of gameplay, but I think they'll basically have nothing that actually physically touches the ground.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then so rapid response will probably be the first finalized subfaction that goes live after the beta. They already have a lot of their content is out. Now it's just a case of filling in the gaps and then doing their multiplayer balancing. And then rapid response will also be good to go. So yeah, Tib, if you wanna tell our viewers about Black Hand and Heavy Cyber.
Yeah. First, to answer a comment question, there will be some flying infantry, and we've actually moved the jump jet trooper, the classic one from TS, will actually be a space comp unit in this mod. So yes, there will be some infantry, but mostly vehicles, I imagine. Their infantry, however, will be the sort of, I guess, Space Marines, not in the Warhammer 4K sense, but yeah. Anyways, so about the Nord factions, well, the Black Hand is of course kind of a classic. However, there is of course two very distinct and very different schools of thought when it comes to the Black Hand. They're sort of how EA handled them, where they're a steamroll faction and sort of very brute force and sort of about terrorizing their enemies and using fire weaponry. And then there's the more classic, what we see as the true Westwood approach to the Black Hand, which is that they started out as a very secretive, covert ops sort of secret society within Nod. And that's the approach that we have gone with for our Black Hand. So you will not be seeing stuff like heavy flame units like in Command and Conquer 3. They will be very heavily stealth focused and basically be all about essentially fucking with their enemy, like keeping them on their toes through stealthy shenanigans, but even more so than not lacking a direct sort of steamroll brute force approach. So balancing them is probably going to be interesting to say the least, but the idea is basically that for them it's all about retaining map control by keeping the enemy on his back foot through subterfuge. Whereas if they're cornered and really forced to stand and fight, their main tool will really be a powerful sort of elite infantry. But whether that will be enough to save them if they go up against something like GDI in a straight fight, well, that might not always be the case. Yeah, both iterations are interesting, but again, in the interest of we want FD to stay fairly loyal to Tiberian Sun's feel, so we've gone with the more classic approach for them in this mod. Heavy Cyber is probably the more sort of out there, not subfaction for FD. It's basically where, okay, so everyone who's familiar with the lore of the story of Firestorm will remember the whole Cabal's uprising, rebellion, or whatever you want to call it. And subsequently, Nod has sort of strayed from using cybernetic tech because they're afraid of something like this happening again. And mildly speaking, it's not really popular amongst the populace after the atrocities of Cabal. However, cybernetic tech and the whole idea of divination and transforming your body was an essential part of Kane's vision. So what actually ends up happening, without spoiling too much of the story, is that it continues existing, but as a sub faction, a somewhat secretive sub faction, um, and they will be a steamrolling, not sub faction. They will be actually possibly even heavier than GI, more heavy-handed in terms of their approach, and very indeed, Lunak. Yeah, they're just going to be very heavily focused on cybernetics and big heavy cyborgs and um, basically everything in their roster has some cybernetic element to it, or at least almost everything. So we have some very interesting design where even their tanks are actually part cyborg. So from an art standpoint, especially, they're one of the factions I'm the most excited about because I've never really seen something like the art style we've made for them in a and Conquer game, but we have taken some inspiration from other sci-fi universes. Not gonna spoil which right now, but some might be able to recognize some sources of inspiration in them. But of course, with our own twist on it. But yeah, they're.
Hmm?
Oh, just saying. Yeah, they're gonna be heavy, terrorizing evil machines, and how they tie together with the story of Firestorm will be addressed. But I'm not gonna spoil that now.
Okay.
So yeah, so those are those are the four sub factions that we'll basically have for GDI and Nod. Then the militia we've basically discussed already. You know, they're oh well, actually we haven't discussed the militia. The militia are basically yeah, like we said, they it's officially the full name is the City State Militia. They're basically it's regional authorities that have banded together and said, listen, we can't rely on GDI to always look after us. You know, GDI might abandon an area because of, you know, some strategic imperative that has changed, or their funding was cut, or they, you know, they get a briefing from on high, and then GDI has to pull out of an area. So the local civilians have basically started to realize that, you know, GDI, they're supposed to be the good guys, but they're not always around, you know. It's kind of a bit like having a deadbeat dad who, when he's home, he's amazing, but for the other 3 weeks out of the month, he's not home, you know. So someone kind of needs to take charge of the situation. So the city state militia kind of rose into that vacuum to say, you know what, we will we will defend our own cities. We will raise our own infantry militias to look after our districts. We will take our, you know, our factories and our industrial areas, we will convert them to make the vehicles and the tanks and the artillery pieces that we need to keep ourselves safe. And from that, the city state militias basically rose not as a single unified international presence in the same way as GDI or NOD are, but each city state militia is basically separate. So the ones in the Baltic states are completely independent from the ones in, you know, Italy, for example, or, you know, the militia states in South Americas, for example, are independent of the ones that are in Africa. So it's very much a case of they fill all the gaps where GI and NOD are not present. And then we have the Forgotten, which are basically the, you know, the remnants of the people who followed Kratos in the single player campaigns. Except they finally sort of cut all their ties now with both GDI and NOD. They're not really impressed with either of them, so they're kind of setting off, doing their own things, staying in the red zones, if we can use the Tiberian Wars terminology. You know, staying in the very heavily mutated and infested areas, and then raiding civilian areas controlled by GDI or by NOD or by the militia to then get resources. And then Tiberius, I think, is very excited to tell people about the Hofati.
Which might be a placeholder name, and no, I'm not going to tell you what it stands for. It's sort of an inside joke. But yeah, the Hofati are they're very conceptual right now. We haven't really developed much on them, but they're going to be a very life form heavy, almost sort of shamanistic or druid like sort of beastmaster, forgotten subfaction. But anyways, I'm thinking let's get into the second mission to see some gameplay and maybe talk about what's going on there with the non-story.
Oh, let's go again. So, which mission? Restitution or reclamation?
Let's go for Restitution. That is the first not mission, and actually chronologically the first not mission.
Yeah. And for everyone who is having some buffering or lagging issue, is from my side. My internet provider is throttling me bits, and sometimes will be some lag buffer. Don't worry. The video and the stream is being recorded, so will be uploaded for everyone else to watch later or to know and enjoy better and slower. So don't worry. Okay, here we go again.
Oh, good luck with this one.
Yeah, I know.
Askhati's favorite mission.
No, you lie. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, it is a dark time for the Brotherhood. GDI massacre and oppression of our people. Cain disappearance and cabal betrayal have left us badly wounded. We must stand strong and united, and remind the downtrodden of the world that they can still count on the Brotherhood. Commander Slavit had decided that the initial place of our restitution will be the Balkans. Their territory has historically embraced us, and we must assure its citizens that we are still very much capable and strong. Take a small squad of our remaining troops and capture key structures in this region to aid us in recruitment and rearmament. Your targets are the town hall of the northwestern settlement, the military armory in the northeastern, the Eastern City Recruitment Center, and the Southwestern City TV station. Oh, the local militia might try to get in your way, but you should not have too much trouble disposing them. TV stations, not is really fun of the TV stations.
Establishing battlefield control. Stand by.
Yeah, well, not like their propaganda, you know. It's worked well for them so far.
You will be going to see us again, Oksana. That is my favorite news reporter, you know?
I think we might have a bit of trouble kidnapping the actress, but we are looking into it.
Well, at least in game, so...
Yes, we actually will see Oksana in game. Doing Oksana stuff. My plans for that mission are sort of a rough draft right now, but yes, we do plan to use her. Part of what you see in this mission, because in terms of story, the CSM actually doesn't exist at this point. So a lot of these militia assets and a lot of other sort of civilian assets are also sort of showcasing a growing militancy the world over. Like, basically, with the Tiberian crisis becoming so severe, it's simply impossible for people to rely solely on the protection of a, at this point, very, very thinly stretched GDI. So a lot of people have taken to up-arming to some degree to try to survive in what few cities are left. Like the world is kind of collapsing at this point. And a lot of people are upset with this, particularly what ends up becoming the CSM, or kind of upset with GDI's approach of, just relocating everyone, because obviously at some point you're going to run out of places to put people as the world gets more infested.
Now,
Also, as we
my major curiosity is why we have veterans engineers here? Do they can find?
No, that's really just a product of some scripting nonsense I'm not going to get into. But no, it doesn't have much. I mean, technically they are more sturdy, so they'll be harder to kill. So it does provide a tiny benefit, but yeah, it's not super significant. All right.
Also-
some of our just saying some of our new assets nicely on display here.
Oh yeah, nice. Oh, that's an interesting tool. Yeah. Also, one of the contributing factors to the rise of the militia faction is, as we've seen in any war zone, whether it's today or 100 years ago, you always have civilians who stay in the war, in the war zone. Even when they could leave, a lot of people will stay and just say, you know what, this is my home. I don't want to run away. I don't want to get stuck on the road. I don't want to become a fugitive or, a stranger in someone else's country. I want to stay here. I want to fight. I want to look after my house or my village or my city or whatever. And that's also the type of thinking which becomes stronger in the Tiberian Sun timeline after the events of Firestorm, because people start to realize that if you abandon, if you get evacuated from your area or whatever, the new place that you go to or where GDI sends you, it's not necessarily going to be better. So a lot of the people decide, you know what, let's just stay here and try and make it work, which is then a large part of the
Shit's going down.
Yeah, one of the objective is achieve recruitment center.
Yeah, well done. But as you can see from the text blurbs here, GDI has showed up.
And I am Dutch. Nice. I am Dutch. Eh,
Looks like he took a bad hit. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Ask. Just wanted to do some commentary on...
No stress.
By the way, I just, as for CSM, I just want to make it very clear to everyone watching that they are not intended as some sort of commentary on current events. We dreamt them up before what's going on right now in the world really, hit the fan, and we're not intending any sort of stance or commentary with them. They're inspired by a multitude of conflicts.
And most of their vehicles are inspired by GDI from Tiberian Dawn. Hashtag just saying.
Yeah. Mangos, you'll have to restart. There's basically nothing you can do at this point.
Yeah.
Speed is really of the essence in this mission.
Speed.
Yeah, it's one of those missions you need to keep playing it and keep failing it until you figure out what to do, unfortunately. It just means a lot of exploring.
That doesn't sound too much like a not mission.
Just explore.
Having to rely on speed? I think that's very not like having to rely on speed.
Yes, but exploring, not so much. Okay, mate. Okay,
Well,
there's engines. Yeah.
Well, I'd say exploring is really a key to most things in the game. Like proper scouting is really a fundamental need for doing well in most missions and multiplayer games. So I wouldn't really attribute that to any one faction.
The major issue right now is that we are playing and showcasing a Lion Dark Souls mode. There's no save. You you die, you go from the start. And I
Yeah.
think I am losing my infantry here, so
Keep in mind that, and this is actually something I really wanted to achieve with this mission, is that since you're basically starting in the middle of the map and you just have 4 objectives you need to achieve, you can choose to do them in any order that you wish. You don't. I've noticed that people, for some reason, they tend to start with this city. You don't have to.
well, that's because we are players and person. We work by psychology. Majority of the people are right-handed people, and they always decided to go for the right. And so, by involuntary or intuition, you go to the right side. So, and what is the shortest way to the right? This place, this city.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It does happen.
And then
Yeah, that.
the funny thing
This is-
for me is that I am left-handed and I'm still used to go to the right hand.
Ah, okay, that is a bit odd.
Oh, dying in the tower. Mm. Something new from the mod that are destructible rods, so you can do some sidestepping. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we really wanted to try to, as far as possible, introduce new ways of setting up these alternate routes and, really reward the player for exploring and paying attention to the environment.
Okay, we got the TV station. Oh, nice, we had troops. And this is a chemical troop. Made it! That is a voice line we'll never forget. Okay, 2 of 4. And Nails K. Healing die. That's something that is a major issue from the mod, or about giving self regen to the troops when you capture a hospital, or is something.
That's a Red Alert 2 mechanic that we don't have. That's not how hospitals work in Tiberian Sun to begin with.
So, like the meme, we don't do that here.
Yeah, we don't do that here.
So if you want to use the hospital, you have to take your infantry and send them into the hospital one by one to heal.
What we do is GDI intervention, so look out.
Oh, yeah, the GDI.
Yeah. Yeah, the big deal here, of course, being that the truce is still supposed to be in effect, so I thought it was interesting as a story element to actually have GDI be the aggressor this time. You expect not to do some sort of covert shenanigans and break the truce that way, but this time it's really GDI wanting to be proactive because they figure Nod are going to backstab them at some point. How could they not? So let's stop them from recruiting any more people because they're still sort of bruised from the last 2 wars.
Oh, the Wolverines stay there. Nice detail that losing this building, it doesn't mean mission fail.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I think that would be too punishing for an initial mission.
Yeah, good thinking.
Insufficient funds.
Yep.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
But yeah, it seems the Wolverines have stopped to guard the city. The enemy units, just because of the slightly random nature of the game's AI, they won't behave the exact same way every time, but that's inadvertently added a nice sort of slight randomization element to the mission that means that every playthrough isn't the same. So between that and the fact that you can go about it in whatever which order you'd like, I'm hoping that the mission gains some replay value that way.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Yeah, especially this mission, which you can do in, you can capture the 4 different cities in different orders. So you know the player can always experiment and say, you know, if you capture a different city first, how does that change your experience? Type thing.
Exactly. Yes, Lunak. I kind of felt the same way. I didn't want it to turn into a city defense mission.
And mostly feels the native of the rules of no, you did your job, you're disposable.
Kinda, yeah. So yeah,
That is not good.
I think that holds true as well. That it's just sort of more not-like to do it this way.
Oh, monsters.
Unit lost.
And we have new Tiberian monsters too, we can see people.
Ah, yeah, the wormoids. With a very tough carapace. Seems that one got stuck.
I see. I was just watching the wormoid die there. I was testing out. I was testing out some code on the worm unit. Normally, when a vehicle explodes, it throws off bits of metallic debris. So, you know, pieces of plates and armor that goes flying. And with the worm, I wanted it to basically shed Tiberium. But currently, if you pay very close attention to the exploding worm, it actually throws off bits of meteor, which is not right. It's just sort of a unintended side effect of the experimentation that I was doing.
Okay, guess the last building emplacement is here, right?
Maybe. Sorry, but I'm not going to to spoil anything. Kind of
Spoiler.
interested to see now. It's always interesting as a content creator to see people, to witness them experience your content for the first time. As your expectations and your sort of previous knowledge of things, I sometimes kind of clash with, people's experience when they go into it without any prior knowledge. So that can be a very teachable moment and very interesting.
Let's find out if my intuition is right.
Insufficient funds.
Well, you did get instructions that sort of roughly where the objectives were going to be.
Yeah, but I am bad in doing that. Where is the north, where is the east and west inside video games?
Yeah, I guess with the isometric view, that sense of direction can be a bit rough. Um, I did consider marking it on the radar, but again, I really wanted to reward exploration and the player sort of discover things at their own pace. And yes, Gielolololo, we're really trying to implement more wildlife and sort of try to make the map more interesting and have them be more of a prevalent threat during the missions.
Ooh, this is a dirty trade. Oh my engines.
Yeah, it's interesting that you cleared the back path, but you never took it.
Yes.
Also, now that you've captured the armory, you can send your infantry into it one by one, and then they will train and come out elite.
So that's one of the interesting sort of, do you get the armory early to get an early boost, or do you wait till you have a good number of guys and then get the armory last?
Okay, another GDI squad.
Yeah, Fef, we are truly grateful for your animating talents when it comes to our the way we're doing these life forms, and I have actually done one of the forgotten units who has sort of the unique aspect of being gameplay-wise in terms of code. It's a vehicle, but it's actually just a really heavy, bulky mutant. So what we're doing is we're taking voxels and then converting them to SHP and having Fef animate them. So that's a whole process of long process involving 2 people and a lot of work. But I think the results have been good so far.
Yeah, no, they have. Fefe has been doing pretty well. Sorry, just a quick question. Once you've captured all 4 of the map points, when does the mission end in a success? Or how does that work?
I don't know if you noticed the check trigger earlier, but you're given orders to eradicate all the GDI intervening, so they won't interfere with you continuously recruiting people in the area.
Oh, okay. So you just need to wipe out the rest of the GDI guys now.
Yeah, basically you need to tell them to fuck off so you can, spread the good word.
Yeah, I kinda failed because I already lose 3 or 4, so that's funny.
Yeah, Wolverines are strong in this mod. We really didn't like how borderline useless they were in the base game. And due to some balancing aspects with the other factions and some having really powerful infantry, TDI really needed a strong anti-infantry option.
Loss! Only engines.
I do wonder if I will need to nerf the difficulty a bit more. I've already done so, I think, twice, but it's a beginner mission. It's not supposed to be overly brutal.
Well, it was brutal. I just lost an entire squad of 7 riflemen lead and 9 rockets against a small wave of GDI.
Yeah, but this is again sort of the challenge as a content creator. Is I have in testing the mission, I've played it through so many times that I could probably do it in my sleep at this point. And again, I know everything that's going to happen and what the timing on it is and so forth. Rampestring, if he's still here, will probably agree with me that it's hard to really truly gauge the difficulty of a mission as its creator.
But well, if you eliminate all the GDI, is mission over, right? Mission accomplished.
Yep.
Yeah, had you killed all of them, you would have won. So I'm thinking you successfully showcased the content of the mission. So we can move on to a bit of co-op if you want.
Nice. But I feel so. Any of you guys in the developer team host? Remember, I am from South America, so if I host again, everything will be super laggy.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll host. If any of our tester staff is watching, they are welcome to join in showcasing our the AI, especially the custom AI for our new factions, is also kind of a new addition, courtesy of Danku, who was actually our showcaser last year, our streaming partner, but has since learned AI coding just for the benefit of our mod, which we are just so incredibly grateful for. And sadly he couldn't be here today, but yeah, huge shout out to Danku as our AI coder.
Yeah. Danko actually stepped into a bit of a void that we had. We didn't have anyone on the team who understood AI, multiplayer AI development. So Danku, he put up his hand and he volunteered to learn. I think he regrets it because it's a very tedious process, and there's a lot of replication of triggers and task forces that need to be set up and copied and tweaked and changed. But he's grown into it and he's done an excellent job. So yeah, we're very thankful for the work that he's done.
And we're very excited to showcase it now. I'm thinking let's have some games against the CSM, because that's a fully custom setup AI done by Danko, since they're not a base game faction. Hey Max, glad you could join. All right, let's find a 6-player map then. Hello there.
Yeah, exciting stuff.
Okay, I will go always with GDI, mango color, and tint A.
One really exciting aspect of our AI, and something that I really have to give kudos to Danku for, is the fact that it actually goes for the map objectives. Which is something I haven't really seen much in other Tiberian Sun games, but map objectives, that is capturable buildings giving all sorts of bonuses, are a huge part of fitting Dusk's multiplayer and balance. So it's really been just a huge plus to have an AI that actually prioritizes these objectives. It really gives you a feel of what the game is actually like.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than having map objectives on the map. Things like oil derricks and armories and hospitals and stuff like that, and then the AI doesn't go for it. So when you're playing against the AI, the human player immediately has a massive advantage because they can capture these structures and the AI will not even contest them. So what Danku did for our AI system was to basically tell the AI, if there are civilian tech structures present, go and capture them and then get benefit from them as well. So that's quite, it's a nice little extra piece of AI function.
The tunnel. Let's try this one. This usually works pretty well.
Words, tunnel words, what a name.
All right, you guys good to go?
Yeah.
Have you put the hard AI? Oh, hard AI. Yep, you're all gonna die.
Hard AI. Well,
Nah,
damn.
we'll be fine. Mangoes, if you want to maybe prioritize going for the city in the north, just to showcase some of our capturable objective stuff.
Oh yeah. He said just get the right button over the right building.
I remember earlier today you were quite surprised to learn the fact that we've at least for now chosen to let the barracks actually provide you with a free rifleman when you build it.
Oh yeah, that's something we need to say.
It mostly just helps with scouting in the early game. You know, it gives you a unit immediately, so you can immediately start clearing fog.
That just speeds up the early game a little bit, really.
And free stuff always come handy.
Yeah, who doesn't like free stuff? Also, I don't know if viewers can see it right now, but my basic pistol-wielding mutants are actually stealthed. Now, I want to make a clear distinction here between this is not cloaking tech that they've stolen or anything. It's merely a representation of sort of, I think as you usually call it, bushcraft, sort of camouflage, being able to blend with the environment. We want to make the Forgotten sort of heavily based on guerrilla tactics, because we figure that's a pretty logical way that this nomadic ragtag band of fighters could actually take on the far superior, sort of the big superpowers, not GDI. Which is again something that we've drawn some inspiration from past real-world conflicts in terms of, you know, guerrilla tactics being able to sort of inflate your fighting power when faced with sort of bad odds.
Yeah, the idea with the mutants also is, I mean, they're scavengers who live in the, you know, in the Badlands and in the sort of in the infested zones, and the mere act of surviving in those hostile environments um, breeds a type of soldier, a type of fighter that is better at fieldcraft. They're better at avoiding danger, you know, detecting problems and things like that. So your typical mutant fighter is a cloaked unit in the game, but that pretty much represents the fact that this guy is, you know, he's wearing his face paint, he's got camo clothing on, he knows when to hide, he knows how to avoid sensors and anything that might, you know, hungry life forms and things like that. So yeah, like Tiberius said, it's not a traditional or conventional nod cloaking device. It's literally just good fieldcraft. You know, lots of face paint and lots of sneakiness.
Yeah, and just lots of knowing your environment. Oh crap, we have a desync. Do we?
Yeah,
Who went out of sync?
it seems so. He says,
Uh, I think let's just start over, guys, because we can't really like
Okay.
someone sees him. Damn, I was doing so well.
well, it's Tiberian Sun after all.
Yeah, it sometimes the engine's gonna engine. 90 spaghetti code, man.
But everyone who was watching me, and you can see there was new neutral buildings, like civilian production buildings, like civilian barracks, civilian war factories, civilian power plants, and these sometimes are guarded by enemy mercenary troops. And the most troll neutral building, aggressive, the sniper tower.
Yes, the sniper towers are very fragile if you rush them with vehicles or anything like that. But what the sniper towers basically do is they prevent you from just running engineers into the cities and just capturing everything, you know, without contesting it. So you first need to kill the sniper towers with vehicles, and then you can send your engineers in.
Max, when is soon? Like, we should wait for him soon, or we should do one game and then he'll be here soon? 2 minutes, okay.
So we have another chill time and conversation and QA. If someone else has some questions, interests, comments.
Yeah, Ask. I guess you'll mostly have to handle answering messages from the chat. I can't really see that when I'm in game.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I see there was a question about if we have a Discord server. Yes, we do, but the Discord server is currently only available for the developers and the alpha testers. So the moment that we go public with the beta, we will open up our Discord server for anyone to join at that point in time. But for now, yeah, it's strictly a dev only server. We just want to keep sort of the energy focused on developing the game and getting active feedback from the playtesters and people like that.
Yeah, we'll be. Yeah, I hate these things too. Trust me. And yes, we will be opening up channels to the public when we go to beta. Hey, Cat.
Oh, there's Cat there! Yay!
Yay!
New reinforcement. Something that's funny for me from seeing the Tiberian Sun launcher, I believe it was created by the left-handed person programmer. The ready is on the left and exit is on the right.
Yeah, yeah. We actually, I think it was it was Danku who he made some of the client themes for us. So you can actually have your when you're using the Tiberian Sun client to prepare games like this, you can actually select a different theme. So this is the GDI theme, which is very yellow dominant. Then there's a nod theme, if you want sort of all the reds and blacks. And then we have the militia theme, which is sort of a brown, khaki drab color. And then the forgotten theme, which is nice and green. It doesn't affect or change gameplay in any way, but it's purely a sort of a eye candy element for for the individual user. So on your end of the client, you can pick the color scheme that you like and then go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like I think several mods have sort of faction themed client themes as well, which is it's a nice touch if you're particularly like maining some particular faction. And again, just huge thank you to Danku for his contributions. All right, guys, let's go.
Listen, I'm just looking at what Rampa is saying in the conversation in the chat today. He's saying a lot of the desync in multiplayer is caused by having AI players present. So if you do get another desync again, I would recommend maybe try playing PvP without any AI players present. That might reduce the likelihood of the desync.
Yeah, let's do that.
If it happens again,
Yeah, of course. Just really wanted to show off our AI if we can. I'm just so really happy that we have a proper custom skirmish AI now. I think that's been just a huge milestone in getting us towards being ready to go to beta.
Yeah.
Yes, Max. Yes, he does. Actually, one thing we also haven't really touched upon is we do also have some custom music for the mod, courtesy of Lupus. So I guess we might link. We actually have our full custom album up on YouTube, or well, he has. So maybe we'll link that after the stream. He's really churned out some bangers for us.
Yeah, we specifically wanted to maintain that very dark, very moody feeling that a lot of the original Tiberian Sun music tracks have. Where you listen to it and you get that it's sort of an industrial, very grim sound to it. So we wanted to maintain that, and Lupus did some excellent work mixing some appropriate tracks for us that kind of retain that gloom of the original soundtrack. Very cool.
Yeah, well, I think it does also introduce a bit of its own style with sort of a more. At least I can think of one track that has just a slight sort of metally, industrial thing going on, but still with that sort of gloomy overtone. Just really nice mix he did there. Um, Also, ask do we want to tell people about our plans for the campaign in terms of that thing that you're working on, hopefully getting up and running?
The camera work.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm, listen, to be honest, because of my changing plans for the next few months, I'm not sure how much of that is going to be able to happen this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I had a feeling, but I mean that is totally understandable with what's going on with you right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I lost. The idea was to get a lot of that stuff done in July and August, but then because of all the government power cuts we had here, it just it's just too far behind schedule now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, life happens, I guess.
Yeah, it happens to
Bad,
all.
bad governments also happen in my case. But next year, when I am re-established back in the, I suppose, homeland, in my case.
In a way, yes.
In a way, yes. Although our family comes from Scotland, not actually from that side of the pond. But yeah, I'll look into it again next year. I'll also be
Coming
closer to
cat.
Germany.
Oh, there's no enable the villain allies.
There is a lobby option
Uh,
to build next to your allies, but it hasn't been enabled.
I actually prefer to play with it off. I feel like you have to coordinate and communicate more, and it's more fun to play without. Instead of just having a base in your allies' base and just you're basically sort of playing parallel to each other instead of with each other. Oh shit!
Hmm. Oh,
A lot of vehicles aggressively moving around there.
W units are enemy, right?
I'm pretty sure I heard that wrong. What? Sorry.
These is our enemies. Yeah, they're enemies. They're shooting you.
Sorry, I heard topless units are enemies.
Well, if they're topless, they're probably trying to distract you some other way.
Probably. Wow, Cat, they do not like you.
Is Cat the Scarlet Nod player?
No, Cat is the sort of khaki CSM player at the top.
Yeah, that well, both the not player and we're gone out of scene again.
All right, I guess we're going to PvP. But we did get to see the CSM AI sort of give both Cat and I a run for our money.
Yeah, here this is our the militia faction, one of the correspondent sub-faction from the Forgotten. There is another one from the Forgotten. New structure in place on the game is the expansion building, like the opposite Tiberian Wars 3, and everyone and NCV is already available from tier 1. Okay, let's
Yeah,
go.
we wanted to not only give people multiple options in terms of expanding, but also try to do away with the typical sort of just everyone bum rushing each other's MGBs and not really fighting with each other, which tends to happen a lot in Tiberian Sun. All right, so let's try to have some 2v2 matches. And I guess let's go with sort of a bit of a classic here.
A minute.
One thing to keep in mind as you're watching this is that our Forgotten faction is still pretty work in progress, so if their balance here isn't perfect, just bear with us. We are working on it.
From my stream, hello, Dismissle. From my side, will be last mostly 20 to 30 minutes. Later, I will raid and with the band from Fading Dust will continue and the stream of Margie Fox. So everyone there will continue the PvP. I have other activities, real life activities that will be take my time. That's why. But the event will continue Fading Dust.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Okay. And ready? Thanks everyone for the follow. Thanks Punish for the gift sub. I appreciate everyone else for the follow. Is I'm not saying is because here with me the developers of the mod, Askhati Tiberius.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hey Mar.
And I'm probably gonna be a bit focused now, trying not to get my ass kicked.
Who is with me? I'm as a ally here.
Cat Tanker is with you.
Ooh, cat, good. Oh, Hoover Valley, man, this is my favorite map of all the mod maps. I always test on this map. You will also notice something in our multiplayer. We have a lobby option where if you get your radar structure up, you will see that certain structures on the map will show. They will always show on the radar minimap, even when they're under the fog. And the reason for that is those are text structures that you can capture. So if you get your radar up and you look at the minimap and you see these little white blocks on it, those are basically areas where you should go and explore because there's something there that you can capture and use. It's a specific lobby option that we decided to put in for the people just to make it more intuitive to get players to know that they should try and capture these structures, because something to keep in mind is vanilla Tiberian Sun did not include text structures in the way that Red Alert 2 does. So even if you add text structures onto a multiplayer map, if players don't know about them or if they don't expect them, then they won't go looking for them, and even if they do find them, they might not capture them. So we specifically wanted to make sure that we, make it obvious that these are things that you should be looking at and trying to capture.
Yeah, it's also a bit about not having prior knowledge of a map be too big of a deciding factor. So if you're playing a map you haven't played before against someone who has played it before, it might be a good idea to put this option on just so him knowing in advance where everything is doesn't necessarily provide almost sort of an auto win.
Yeah, so the lobby options up, we've got the basics in there, like activating or disabling super weapons, building off your allies, things like that. And then you also have kind of some options in there that are not really massive game changing things. Like for example, this the text structures that show up under the fog. And then one that we also have, which is quite fun when you're playing Arctic missions, is we have the Arctic camouflage lobby option where you toggle that, and then some of the vehicles will basically, instead of showing up in the game with their normal NOD gray or CSM khaki paint job, the vehicle will show up in the game with a snow camouflage. So the vehicle will be sort of white. Makes absolutely no difference to the gameplay, but it's just a little cool little effect, if you want to sort of get really immersed in your winter warfare type of experience.
Oh, that's new.
What are you discovering?
One of the units had a spider trap web from.
Oh, that's the Nod Assault APC. It will throw webs on enemy infantry to basically force them down.
Yeah, after which you can unload and just sort of massacre them while they can't fight back.
Well, it seems that not really improved in the technology from Cable.
Yeah, but because the thing is, the Cyborg Reapers from regular Firestorm, that webbing effect that they had, it's an incredibly powerful ability. But it was also the unit itself, because of the cluster weapons. It's a super random unit. It's a bit of a chaotic choice to use. So we decided to move the webs to APC. Make it kind of useful in a way. And then the Cyborg Reaper itself was disabled for normal NOD, and it was instead moved over to the Heavy Cyber sub-faction. So Heavy Cyber will now get the Cyborg Reaper as part of their regular arsenal. Oh, I see Rampart commented there about marking text structures on the client map preview. Yes, you could. It's one option of doing it, but the problem is the moment you do that, then that preview is always there. It's always kind of, it's baked into the preview image. So,
Ooh.
which then obviously makes it you can't get rid of it, if you don't want to have it visible. Whereas with the lobby toggle, uh, excuse me, with a lobby toggle, you give the player, or the host of the game at least, you give them that option and flexibility to say, do I want to show the previews or do I not want to show the previews? So we try and go for options that are a bit more flexible in that regard.
Ah, man, what's with the desyncs today? I guess let's try again. Like, we actually tested earlier and played through full matches without any hiccups.
Yeah, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know if the tunnel can play a role, but I'll try changing it just.
It could be the tunnel. It could also be because Mango is streaming on his side.
Yeah, it can be. Well, everything is kind of possible with Tiberian Sun in this case, really. But the thing is, right now, I don't know if Mars still here and able to join and able to start his stream because it's kind of close to me the time hour, so where I need to leave. So to not cut the game and HAL or saying sorry guys, I need to leave, especially for my teammate. Let's move to.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. If Max is ready to join, that would be great. Ready in a few minutes. Okay. Oh, there he is.
Okay, cool. So we hop over to his. We just need a link to his Twitch or his streaming site.
Yeah. Let me. Well, in my case, I will right hand, so everyone on the stream will be instantly moved to him. So
Oh, awesome.
just tell me, Mar, when you are ready. So I will start the raid. And for Mar, I don't know if he updated all the files from the match for multiplayer and everything. Well, for everyone in the stream and the first part, I had to go now, so we will continue the ban on the Margie Fox streams. Thanks everyone for came the stream, chatter, follow me, and punish and everyone who give me the bits and the subscriptions. I really appreciate that everyone enjoy and the streams. The side part of my recording will be shared to the developers of Fading Dust and will be uploaded when times come.
All right. Also,
Yeah.
Mango.
Thanks for,
Yeah, thanks for hosting us.
Well, thanks to you guys for choosing me to be the host.
Yeah. Thanks for everything, man. We really appreciate it.
Okay. G-Fox is ready in the line and we are moving in. Thanks everyone for staying in the stream. We're moving to Margie Fox. And see everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Mr. Fox, how's
hey,
it going?
Mark.
I am fine. I hope you too.